Yeah. He's recording, so why do I not have?
Darushan, do you want to start and then?
Sure. Thy name is my healing, oh my God, and remembrance of thee is my remedy. Nearness to thee is my hope, and love for thee is my companion. Thy mercy to me is my healing and my succor in both this world and the world to come. Thy name is my healing, oh my God, and remembrance of thee is my remedy. Nearness to thee is my hope, and love for thee is my companion. Thy mercy to me is my healing and my succor in both this world and the world to come. Thy name is my healing, oh my God, and remembrance of thee is my remedy. Nearness to thee is my hope, and love for thee is my companion. Thy mercy to me is my healing and my succor in both this world and the world to come. Thou verily art the all-bountiful, the all-knowing, the all-wise. Thy mercy to me is my healing and my succor in both this world and the world to come. Thy name is my healing, oh my God, and remembrance of thee is my remedy.
Эзэн тэнгэр минь ээ. Дэлхийн бүх ард түмнүүдэд өөрийн шүтлгийн дивааж нэвтрэх орох боломжийг олгоно. Чингис таны сайн сайхан хүсэл санааны хязгаараас гадна орших нэгж бодвол зүйл үлдэхгүй болно. Балар эзний цагаас хойш та хүссэн бүхнээ гүйцэлдүүлэх чадaltaй байсан бөгөөд таалсан бүхнээсээ ч дээгүүр оршиж ирсэн билээ.
Thank you very much. So, I click on share the screen.
Yes.
Oh.
And then the bottom right, the blue one.
Yes.
There we go. Yeah. Now we just need to see your Iqán and your notes.
Can you see it?
No, can you?
No.
So just bring them forth. You can click on it, yeah.
Ah.
There we go.
There we go. Wonderful. You're a lifesaver, Louis.
You are.
Okay. Now, last time we did 2 paragraphs, right? Paragraph 8 and paragraph 9. Somebody from last session could perhaps tell us the summary of what we discussed last time. in paragraph 8. Someone, please? Anybody? Go on. Someone? Please?
Maybe someone can memorize just a small, say a small part. You don't have to do the whole 2 sections.
Yeah, only whatever points you remember we discussed. Anybody?
A word, a concept, anything.
Okay. Otherwise, we'll have to volunteer Louis.
I think Mehdi was just about to say something.
Can I say?
Yes, please.
Yes, please. Anybody? Yes, please. We
Yeah,
like.
the one thing we got there is from the notes where it says we should meditate profoundly. It appears by other phrases, reflect a moment, ponder for a moment. Paula says that we have to meditate profoundly to understand the word of God.
Mhm.
And also is asking us to repeatedly to search for each person for himself the truth and matter independently.
Great. Yes, there was one of the points that everyone in whatever thing, we have to independently research into it and investigate the truth for ourselves. And that's what he's asking the uncle to do. And one of the things is Baha'u'llah is telling him and us is to look into the history of the previous manifestations of God, the manifestations of old, all those prophets who came from God. Each and every one suffered in the hands of those people who claim to be knowledgeable about the coming of who they were waiting for. And when he arrived, they all denied him, they opposed him, they inflicted lots of, physical as well as other damage on him. And those, he says that we should not depend on the saying of the people, of earthly people. And some of those he's referring to the clergy, the religious leaders. And then there are the points we discussed was about tests that we go through. And the tests are good in a way because it makes our spiritual progression. But on the other hand, we have to pray that we don't get the test as far as possible. We just sail through easily. But all of us will have to pray for our end because we don't know what the end is going to be. We have to make an effort so that we go through the test if we come across it.
Sally is raising her hand.
Oh, sorry, Sally, I didn't see.
This isn't about the review of last time, but excuse me, I think last time we were talking about the leaders of the world, or maybe it's the time before, that Baha'u'llah wrote to. Yes. And someone asked if he wrote to the President of the United States, and we said no. But in this book on the history of the Baha'i faith in America that I've been reading, it says that Baha'u'llah did write a tablet addressed to the rulers of America and the presidents of the republics therein. This was apparently written at the time that President Grant was the president, but
Yes.
that's all this book says. I don't have any knowledge that President Grant actually received this, or if he did, no response. I don't know any more about it.
He probably, I don't know about it, perhaps others might know. But yes, he was written to, and he, which, you know, from what we read, that there were only, Queen Victoria was the only one who responded kind of semi-positive. The rest of them, none of them responded. So he may be included in that. It's something that perhaps one can find out.
Yeah, this book does not say, I mean, that's the only thing it says, is that that tablet was revealed. It doesn't say President Grant received it or that anything else. I don't know any more about that.
No, I don't know either. Does anyone know anything about that? No. Okay. So that's an interesting point. Perhaps we should go looking for it, find out. Yes.
If I may
Okay.
add the history.
Madonna. Yes.
So in the beginning of paragraph 8, we read
Yeah.
a few questions. So after that, Baha'u'llah asked us to meditate profoundly, as Mehdi already asked. And in the end of that paragraph, he quotes the Quran, where it says, "Do men think when they say we believe, they shall be let alone and not be put to proof?" So I think this is one theme that is very strong in where we are reading now.
Yes.
About God testing us, and yeah, just
That's
wanted
right.
to say that.
Yes. If I'm not mistaken, and I remember very vaguely, I think in some place Abdul Baha in a prayer says, "Don't put us through tests." Isn't it?
I recall that too. Yeah.
Yes. But if it comes, this is what we have to pray for. And we read that paragraph 214 of the Íqán, in which it says that none of us knows his own end, what our end is going to be. So we should all make effort so that before we leave this world, we go with a strong faith from this world. That's very, very important. Okay, and paragraph 9 was all about prophethood. Yeah?
We have someone raising their hand.
Anybody raising the hand?
I think it was Ravi. Ravi?
One. Ramin?
Yes, I'm sorry. Yes, hello everybody. Yes,
Allah.
I was merely stating about paragraph 8 about the non-fulfillment of the divine promise being made.
Yes.
And how we are being put to test. So the non-fulfillment of a promise, when it is not being done by the creation, it is our weakness. But if it is not done by the manifestation of God, it shows the power of God and his willingness to fulfill whatever God's want at any point of time.
Yes.
So by this, we will be always put to test and to see how it happens.
Yes.
So with past manifestation, we have seen it, how they have been put to test through non-fulfillment also, and to see how far they are steadfast.
Yes.
Thank you.
Yes, interesting. Yeah. Go on.
Could I also say something regarding the paragraph 8?
Uh-huh.
Roya. Just I think we also talked about why did people deny this manifestation of God, and it was partly because of their tradition, and also some of it because of the ego and greed of the imams or the people of knowledge of that time. It's also, it's again, it's it talks about meditate profoundly that the secret of things unseen may be revealed unto you, that you may inhale the sweetness of spiritual and imperishable fragrance.
Yes. Yes, of course, one cannot say that there is only one or two reasons. There are numerous reasons behind that. And it's the fault of people, not the fault of the prophet. For example, one of the things that he says here in this paragraph is non-fulfillment of the promise that God gives us. Now, either God himself wants to show us the power that he can do what he wills, or there are promises that we want it happen as it looks like, superficially, like the literal, we wanted whatever the promises was to be literally happening. You see, the commonest one is when it says, when a messenger will appear, he will appear, I don't know, like Christ will return sitting on the cloud. Now we expect him to be coming actually from sky, sitting on the cloud. And that's our fault of misunderstanding, not understanding the promise. Yeah, Roya, exactly. There are many, many reasons, misguiding of the clergy, the investigation of truth from our part, to know what exactly it is, the egos, whatever. There are so many causes of that. Okay, we had that young lady raise her hand as well.
Yeah.
Go on.
Yes, shortly before paragraph 9, we
Yes.
also mentioned forgiving others and avoiding evildoers.
Yes.
We said we have to be careful of the evildoers so they don't misguide us.
Yes.
And we should also pray for them.
Hmm.
We also mentioned shortly the covenant breakers, which of course we shouldn't have any contact with when they're confirmed by the Universal House of Justice.
Yes.
And we have to say our regular prayers, obligatory prayers, to keep us steadfast in such cases, and to live in the steps of Abdu'l-Baha.
Yes. Yes, of course. Wonderful. Yes. Okay. Anyone else? And paragraph 9. In paragraph 9, we talked about prophethood. Yes. That he was one of the 5 prophets that in Quran is mentioned. All of the 5 of them appeared in the Arabian Peninsula. We saw the map. I think it is here, the map. I could possibly bring it up again. No. Oh, this is not the one. This is Iran. Yes. So these Hud Prophet Hud was amongst the 5 prophets. The other one is Saleh, which we are going to read about him now in the next paragraph. Abraham was the other one, Shoaib and Muhammad. All these 5 prophets appeared in Arabian Peninsula, and we saw the map. This is the map of showing, this is that peninsula, the Arabian Peninsula, for those of you perhaps who were not there. And the countries that form it are Saudi Arabia, Yemen, Oman here, the Emirates, Qatar, Bahrain, a little island here, and Kuwait. This forms the whole Arabian Peninsula, and it was in this area that Hud appeared, Prophet Hud, to the people of Ad. We talked about that as well, and you've got the notes about that anyway. And Ad was in this, that tribe were here, somewhere in the south of the Arabian Peninsula. And then Baha'u'llah says over 700 years, and of course the Guardian explains that the 700 years and 250 years of the ages of this prophet that is mentioned is not in terms of the time of what we count our months and years in those days. That is one point he mentions. And the other point is, like 750 years was the duration of his faith, of his cause. Okay. Now, if you don't have anything else to share with us, we move on to next paragraph.
I've got a little question. Can you hear
Yes.
me? It's Mary. You mentioned in Quran there was 25 prophets being mentioned. And
Yes.
it's given the name. Was Zoroastrian name something else or is missing?
Sorry, it's what, Mary John?
Zarathustra. Is it missing or he was named something else?
Well, Zoroastrian is not in that list. You're right. Is that right?
Yeah.
So those are the names of the prophets, 25 altogether, that appeared in Quran.
Yeah.
Apparently, Zoroaster or Zardosht was never mentioned in Quran.
Right. So it's strange that in Iran they accept the Zoroastrian's religion.
Yes.
And the prophet's name is not mentioned.
He wasn't mentioned in Quran, but he is one of the ancient prophets, of course.
Right.
Because we read that in the Baha'i writings about Zoroastrian.
Yeah, the one I accepted Zoroastrian is my son very low. Come on. Can you hear me?
Mehri,
Can you hear me? Should I turn the sound up or something? That's why I said Paddy said.
Is the sound coming through all right, Rostam?
Now it's coming. I think it's Mehri sitting.
So it's me. So I tell Paddy to talk on my behalf. Okay, so that was my question. Zoroastrian, Zarathustra hasn't been mentioned in the Quran there.
No, it doesn't appear to be. These are the 25 names, as far as I know, unless somebody is well versed with Quran and maybe Zoroaster is mentioned in a non indirect way. I don't know.
Right. Okay, thank you.
Not at all, maybe.
Yes, Dr. Mejdi, I think that not all the prophets are mentioned. I think there's 124,000 prophets that they don't mention. So I think that various regimes in, for example, Iran, where there are mostly Zoroastrians, have looked on it in different ways. So they can be looked on as people that had a prophet, or sometimes when it doesn't go their way, they can choose to look on Zoroastrians as people that have a false prophet.
Yeah.
So I think mostly in Iran it's meant to be okay, but obviously it isn't. But Zoroaster definitely could be accepted as a prophet that just wasn't named, but he should be accepted technically.
Of course. And it was it was a great religion, and it expanded in a big area for many years until Islam appeared. And then they were kind of, especially in Iran and in other parts of the where the influence of Zoroastrians they were forced to convert into Islam in many parts. And anyway, yes, it's a very, very important religion. One of the ones who teaches the unity of unity of God and so on. And even in their books, there is prophecies about the coming of Bab and Baha'u'llah. Very clearly. Very clearly. Right. Now, last time we promised that maybe it's time as Ushan was on, we said that they attend the class of Dr. Khananapazir, Ushan and Adam. And maybe you want to briefly share with us a couple of stories or whatever you think?
Well, Adam is not here, I think probably on purpose, because we discussed this earlier. There was a great story told the other day. I won't tell it, so I'll wait till he comes and he can tell it. But it was a story that Baha'u'llah told to a believer that came to visit him in Akka, and it sort of explains why the manifestations of God have to come to us in a human form. It's a lovely story, that, so I won't tell too much about it. But if you want to know what today we talked, I think the theme was to have a pure heart. And as the second paragraph says, we have to cleanse our heart of everything. So it was all about that, cleansing our hearts, basically, which I'm sure everybody already knows.
Right.
And when Adam comes, he can tell the parrot story.
He'll tell us the story. Okay. Anything else you want to share us from that class, Oshan?
No, would love to start reading.
Okay. So let's somebody read paragraph 10. Can you see it on the screen?
Yes.
This is paragraph 10. And after him, who's going to read it? Leila John, are you there? No. Okay, somebody's got her hand raised. Nobody wants to read it?
I'll volunteer.
Go on, Delina.
And after him, there appeared from the Rizwan of the eternal, the invisible, the holy person of Saleh, who again summoned the people to the river of everlasting life. For over 100 years, he admonished them to hold fast unto the commandments of God, and eschew that which is forbidden. His admonitions, however, yielded no fruit, and his pleading proved of no avail. Several times he retired and lived in seclusion. All this, although that eternal beauty was summoning the people to no other than the city of God, even as it is revealed. And unto the tribe of Thamud we sent their brother Salil. O my people, said he, worship God. Ye have none other God beside him. They made reply, O Salih, our hopes were fixed on thee until now. Forbiddest thou us to worship that which our fathers worshipped? Truly we misdoubt that whereunto thou callest us as suspicious. All this proved fruitless, until at last there went up a great cry, and all fell into utter perdition.
Okay, so somebody try and explain what I'm understand, or anybody, you know, everyone who, what you got from this paragraph. I've got some notes that we will read after this, but it's nice to see what we understand from it, each one of us. And after him, who is him? Means Hud, Prophet Hud, right? There appeared from the Rizwan of the eternal, the invisible, the holy person of Saleh, Prophet Saleh. Okay? Who wants to share their thoughts about this paragraph? Anyone? Okay. So after Hud, Baha'u'llah says that Saleh appeared from the Rizwan of the eternal, eternal, the invisible, which is who? From God, right? Mm. The eternal, the invisible is none other than God. So he appeared from as a messenger of God. From the Rizwan. Rizwan, we will read a little bit about it. Rizwan means paradise, right? Or sometimes it's referred to as a garden, but it means paradise. And in Islamic tradition, it's a name given to the custodian of paradise. The name of the custodian of paradise is Rizwan. And then he says, in the same way, like Saleh, people opposed him, and for over 100 years, they say that Saleh, I think it is said in Quran that he lived for 120 years. Again, that 120 years is not according to today's calculation. It was different in those days. So it wasn't 120 years, but Baha'u'llah here says that over 100 years, he tried his best to guide people to the city of God. What city of God, friends? And people denied him again. They ignored him. They made him to suffer that so many times. Baha'u'llah says he retired himself to seclusion for the sake of those people. And then, of course, he quotes that ayah from Quran the verse of Quran that it says that God sent Saleh to the people of Thamud, people of Samud. Samud, again, we will read about it in a minute, and we can discuss it. It was a tribe or tribes of people who were in the Arabian
Yemen?
Yemen area. It was south, but there is, there is contradiction even with some of our authors, some of our Baha'i authors, that some say that he appeared in the south where Yemen is, and some say he appeared in the north. Apparently, he was, wherever he was originally, it looks like, wherever this tribe was originally, it looks like they had expanded all over the Arabian continent later on. Okay, and of course, that Quran says that the people responded to Saleh by saying something like this, that, we were trusting you to tell us, to allow us to stick with what our forefathers were believing in, like, worshiping the idols and other things. But now you're telling us things that is different to our belief, to what our fathers have been teaching us to do. And that's why we are suspicious about you and we don't believe in you. And, because of their denials, because of their disapproval of his teaching, and there appeared a great cry, Baha'u'llah says. I think it is said in the holy books of the past that this was in the form of an earthquake. And the people who were unbelievers, they fell into what Baha'u'llah says, utter perdition. Perdition means destruction. And of course, all these terminologies are symbolic. And it is that spiritually we become dead when people don't follow the prophets. Do you guys want to add anything?
I would just like to add that this is a sign of attachment. And as we read earlier, that we should be detached from all that is in heaven and earth. And we should, what does it say? Here it says in the beginning that we must cleanse ourselves of all that is earthly, from idle talk, vain imaginings, worldly affections, and so on. And in order to attain the shores of the ocean of true understanding, we should be detached, So we saw that they were not detached, and they were being tested, like we also read just in the paragraph before, that we will always be tested. And then they obviously failed that test, as they were not able to accept the new message of God.
Yes, wonderful point.
Oshan, raise the hand.
Thank you, Louis. One thing that an interesting note is that there is the tomb of Saleh in Akka.
Yes.
I think there are many tombs of Saleh, but still, that's an interesting point. I don't know if that has some spiritual significance that Baha'u'llah ended up there. There's a nice connection. And the other one was the line where it says several times he retired and lived in seclusion. I felt that's like, it's such a, it feels more relatable when something sad happens or something bad happens to a prophet. It's a little bit easier for us to relate to them in that way. And it seems, for whatever reason, I mean, every prophet has bad things happen to them, but they also all seem to go away and do their thing for a little bit, whether that's, I don't know, contemplating their message or however that works. But it's, I just note that that's put down there, that he went several times by himself, like Baha'u'llah to Suleymaniya or Jesus to the desert and things like that.
Yes, yes. You see, Baha'u'llah, because of the actions of the Babis in Baghdad, he just took himself away for 2 years. That he could not, even the Prophet of God could not face what they were doing to the faith of God. And then when he was in Adrianople, in Adarne, he did the same. For a while, he went to a house and closed the door to everybody because of the action of the people. And so, yes, this seclusion is right. Prophet Saleh, those of you, I don't know, who were serving in the Holy Land, in Akka, I don't know if you have been to that old cemetery, a very old cemetery, the Muslim cemeteries in Akka. There is, it's called the grave of Nabi Saleh. It's a very modest shrine. I have seen it. And very next to it was buried Husn Athar, Mirza Mehdi, brother of Abdul Baha, whose remains were later on moved to Mount Carmel by the Guardian. I think it was in 1952 or 53 that the Guardian decided to move the remains of Mirza Mehdi, which was very close to the grave of Prophet Saleh in Akka, over to Mount Carmel, next to the grave of the greatest Holy League. And also, the mother of Abdul Baha, who was also buried there, not in that, exactly in that cemetery, but there is another cemetery near there. And she, Nawab Asiya Khanum, she was also buried there in that cemetery, very near the other cemetery where Nabi Saleh was buried. And she was also moved to the Monument Garden in Haifa. Now, why he did that? It was because when the greatest Holy Leaf was alive, she had expressed her wish a few times to the beloved Guardian that when she passes away, she wanted to be buried near her mother and other relatives. And so when the greatest Holy Leaf passed away, she was buried in Mount Carmel. Instead of burying her in Akka, the Guardian buried her on Mount Carmel in the Monument Garden, and he brought the two other remains of her brother and her mother to be next to her. So that fulfilled the wish of Baha'u'llah Khanum, the greatest Holy Leaf. The Guardian fulfilled her wish by doing that.
Sally, you have a word?
Huh?
I have a question. I guess maybe this is from last time, but when we talk about the 5 prophets of God, Hud, Saleh, Abraham, Shiab, and Muhammad,
Yes.
do you know, are those 5 considered to have the same station by Muslims? Because of course we don't consider them to have the same station, but since they're all included in the same 5 prophets, I just wonder how they think about that.
What do you think, other participants? Is there anybody who has any knowledge of that? You see, I'm not sure about Shoaib because I haven't read much about him yet, but the others appear to be considered by Quran as being the prophet with the 2 functions of establishing a new religion with revelation of a book, and also having the other function of prophesizing about the future, coming of the messages. So yes, the answer, I think my understanding is that all 5 of them, I'm not 100% about Shoaib, but they all had the Rasul and the Nabi status. I don't know if others know anything more than that. You want to share? No. Okay. So we will read, in the beginning it says, in the beginning of this paragraph, where are we? It says, and after prophethood there appeared from the Rizwan of the eternal and invisible. I've written a little few notes about Rizwan. Let's read it. Who shall we ask to read? Buddy, how about you?
Right. Rizwan means paradise and is also the name of the custodian paradise in Islamic tradition. Baha'u'llah gave this name.
So that's quite clear because we said it before, right?
Yeah.
Okay.
Sorry. Baha'u'llah gave this name Rizwan to Najabiyya or Najib Pasha garden in Baghdad, and he proclaimed his identity as a messenger of God in April 1863. The 12 days celebrated as Rizwan Festival, April 21 to May 2, is commemorated by the Baha'is worldwide are the 12 days that Baha'u'llah spent in the garden of Rizwan on the banks of River Tigris. The first, 9th, and 12th days of Rizwan are considered significant holy days by the Baha'is. The first day, April 21, was the day that Baha'u'llah openly announced his position as him whom God shall make manifest. On the 9th day, April 29, his family joined him in that garden, preparation for the journey into exile. The 12th day, May 2, represent the day that Baha'u'llah and his family left Rizwan Garden in Baghdad, Constantinople in Turkey.
Okay. So this I guess everybody knows this, right? That this garden, just before Baha'u'llah left Baghdad, he went for 12 days in this garden, which was, the name of the garden was Najibiye, or Najib Pasha Garden. And in this garden, until then, he had not actually declared his mission openly. The first, signs that he was a prophet, and it perhaps was noticed at least by some of the people around him, like Abdul Baha, when, as a child, and his close relations, was when he came out of the Siyah Chal of Tehran. That was the time that he, he kind of became, I'm sure he was aware before that, he was given this big mission of prophethood that he describes it. You remember, he describes in the Siyah Chal how he felt this fairy coming to him and all that. But he did not declare it to the friends himself. If the analogy is like a sun that gradually appears. So he didn't want to cause blindness of people. So he gradually, he allowed it to become apparent to people. And it was so many years later, like in 63, 10, 11 years later, that he openly in Baghdad, in the Najibiya garden, the Garden of Rizwan, he declared his mission on the 21st of April. And the history described by Nabil is very fascinating. When you read about it, what happened, although the detail of it is not known, but whatever we know and Nabil describes and the Guardian describes is amazing. You cannot compare any other past religion with such, liveliness of the history that we can read and know about. So it's very, very interesting for you to know. And the first day of Rizwan was the 21st of April, when he announced to the few people who were there around him. And the 9th day of Rizwan was when his family, who were in Baghdad, they joined him. And on the 12th day of Rizwan, of course, he bade farewell to his companions in Baghdad. Of course, some of them went with him, but others had to sadly remain behind. Anything that you want to share, please? Anybody? No? Okay, then the other paragraph is about the Rizwan garden in Akka. Adi, you want to finish that?
He also gave this name Rizwan to a garden situated just outside Akka. This garden was originally known as the Garden of Naumain. It was rented by Abdul Baha for Baha'u'llah, who enjoyed an occasional day or two stay in that garden. While he was residing in the mansion of Bahji, it was purchased later and is amongst the Baha'i holy places in Israel. Although it shares the same name, it does not have the same significance of the Garden of Rizwan in Baghdad. No connection, Festival of Rizwan.
either. So
Can
we have
you- sorry, is that the end of it? Because I can't see any further. The next one is Saleh. Yeah.
That's it, yes. So we have two Rizwan gardens. One is in Baghdad, where Baha'u'llah declared his mission. And this one is a beautiful garden in Akka. Those of you who have been on pilgrimage have visited that, and there are so many beautiful stories attached to Rizwan Garden and Baha'u'llah's going over there every now and again. Okay, if you don't have anything to add, we move on to the other paragraph.
I can maybe add something. Adam here. Sorry, I'm a little late.
Hello, Adam.
Hey. I was curious about the name itself, Rizwan, and it's so I asked an Arabic-speaking friend, and he said it's very deep, and there's you can go very deep into the explanation of what it means. But in short, it means a kind of heavenly state, the highest heavenly state of consciousness, one could say. So the word itself has, I think there's some roots that are
deep.
I don't know if there's Arabic speakers in the room, but there's roots that are deep with this word.
Yes. You see, the very sentence that Baha'u'llah uses here, he says that Saleh appeared from the Rizwan of the eternal, the invisible. So yes, there could be a lot of deeper meaning to superficial, but literally it means paradise. Just a little meaning of it. You're right, Adam. So it's perhaps worth looking into that as well. Okay.
Yeah, I'm just one second. So the root is rida. The root is ridha, which is contentment in Arabic.
Yes, reza.
Yeah. I guess the da becomes a z in Farsi.
The dal becomes z. Reza means, yes, contentment. What's the other word? Reza, yeah. Yes, contentment. Sure.
Yeah, just something to add.
Yeah, of course. Great. See how it's wonderful for us to hear others sharing their views. Thank you, Adam.
Most welcome.
While you're there, Adam, can you read Saleh, that first paragraph?
Yes, let me just take the pan off the stove. Okay, so let's see here. Zoom in. Where does it start here? Saleh?
Saleh. Now this gives us a little bit of history of where and how Saleh appeared.
Yes. Okay, the second prophet of the Arabs appeared to the Thamud tribe. Thamud tribe. Some commentators identify him with Salah of Genesis 10:24.
Yes.
He is mentioned extensively in the Quran. According to Muslim traditions, Saleh began his prophetic mission when he was 16 and lived for 120 years. When Saleh was asked for a sign by the people who opposed him, God sent them a she-camel. Hold on here, my phone just shut down. So Abdul Baha explains that the she-camel mentioned in relation to Saleh's mission is a symbol of Saleh himself and the camel's offspring, his blessed faith. In this sense, Baha'u'llah addresses one of his enemies saying that Because of him, the she-camel was hamstrung. And again, the heedless ones have hamstrung thy white she-camel and caused thy crimson ark to founder. In yet another passage he states, consider the she-camel. Though but a beast, yet hath the all-merciful exalted her to so high a station that the tongues of the earth made mention of her and celebrated her praise.
Okay, so let's just analyze some of these things. Okay, that 120 years, we know that it's not actually 120 years that he lived. We talked about it so many times. Okay, and then the people who opposed him, they asked for a miracle, for a sign from God. And so God sent them a she-camel. A white, it said that it was a white she-camel that was sent by God to them. And of course, Abdul Baha says that this she-camel is the spirit of Saleh himself, you know, and his offsprings are the camels, her offspring, the camel's offspring are his blessed faith. Any ideas, any views on that, please? This she-camel in relation to Saleh is quite well known, and it's nice to discuss it a little bit.
What I'm wondering is the she-camel just, it's a metaphor.
Yes.
Is there any other parallels to any other metaphors like that? Are we talking, could it be kind of like the maid of heaven? Is this something, a similar metaphor?
Could be, yes. I think so. Do you? Yes. And, you know, the faith of God and the prophets of God are compared to many things like maid of heaven and other things like what do you call Ferishte, the
Angels.
the angels and so on. Yes. Yes, but here, because in that part of the world, camel was one of the important animals. That's why this is perhaps mentioned here.
There was a parallel that came to mind. Kevin Locke, who makes usually a kind of synthesis or connection to indigenous prophets, and he
Yes.
does this with the Hadith that says that there's been 124,000 prophets on the planet. There was a prophet for the Lakota people called White Buffalo Calf Woman, who
Yes.
came White Buffalo, and she was the one who regenerated their culture. And Lakota means the united people, and they got the peace pipe, which was a way to unite the warring tribes and such. So that's the only thing that I can think of offhand, like that has more direct, because the white camel was mentioned than the white buffalo. So
Yeah, great. But whatever, it's symbolic, right? We know that it is symbolic. Abdul Baha has explained very clearly. And Baha'u'llah here said, you know, again, there is a lot of meaning in this verse from Baha'u'llah. He says, the she-camel was hamstrung. What is hamstrung? Well, it means kind of causing it paralyzed, disabled. Okay? And here, it's the spirit of Saleh, which was the faith he brought to the people. So Baha'u'llah here means that his faith was disabled, was made paralyzed. And then he goes on to say that the heedless one, the ones who were not believers, hamstrung thy white she-camel and caused thy crimson ark to founder. Crimson ark, again, is the cause of God, the religion of God, to founder. Founder, again, means to be disabled, crippled, right? But in another passage, he states, consider, he says the opposite, the she-camel. Though but a beast, yet had the All-Merciful exalted her to so high a station that the tongues of the earth made mention of her and celebrated her praise. Now here, if Abdul Baha says that the she-camel was the faith or the spirit of Saleh introduced to the people, he says that, you know, Saleh, like all other prophets, had two aspects. One of his aspects was, and that human nature is animal nature. But the other nature of him was that function as a prophet, that he appeared as manifestation of God. So he says that that nature of him, that nature of animal, a beast, is elevated, is exalted to such a high station. Agreeable? And so when people become believers, even for ordinary people, our station will be raised, will be elevated spiritual wise. Okay, now the crimson ark. What is crimson? What is an ark? We know what ark is, right? Like a ship. Okay? And crimson means, okay, we read it, it explains here. Who's going to read it? Darius, will you do it?
Paranak.
Darius is gone.
The meaning of crimson ark. Can you see it?
Yeah.
Go on.
And appoint somebody.
I think
I'm the German one. I can also.
Darius.
The German Darius.
There were two before, yes.
Whichever, doesn't matter. So the German Darius, and then next one, other English Darius will do it.
I can play both of them.
All
Okay.
right.
The meaning of crimson ark. Literally mean a rich, deep red color, inclining to purple as in dark red roses. The symbolic meaning of the color crimson is of fire and associated with power and importance, a color which stands out. Crimson also has a biblical meaning symbolizing the presence of God and the blood of martyrs.
Okay, so this is kind of general meaning of it, right? Crimson means red color, deep red color. And Baha'u'llah uses this crimson ark in many places. So, you know, he means that it is it's God related, and it is also important in the sense that Bible says that, you know, the faith of God grows by the blood of the martyrs. That is one of the ways that the faith grows. Okay, the other one, the other point is when you say crimson, red color is normally psychologically very attractive color. They say even if the color is on your side, if there is a red color, it kind of attracts you towards it on your side, although it's beyond the scope of your sight, it attracts you. So it's a very, it kind of stands out, as it says. That's why the faith of Baha'u'llah or cause of God, any of the causes of God, are related as Crimson Ark. Okay, go on, Darius, German Darius. The Crimson Ark.
The Crimson Ark refers to the cause of Baha'u'llah. His followers are designated as the companions of the Crimson Ark, lauded by the Bab in the Ghayyum al-Asma. In the Kitáb-i-Íqán, Baha'u'llah reveals, how great the blessedness that awaiteth the king who will arise to aid my cause and my kingdom, who will detach himself from all else but me. Such a king is numbered with the companions of the Crimson Ark, the ark which God hath prepared for the people of Baha. All must glorify his name, must reverence his station, and aid him to unlock the cities with the keys of my name, the omnipotent protector of all that inhabit the visible and invisible kingdoms. Such a king is the very eye of mankind, luminous ornament on the brow of creation, the fountainhead of blessings unto the whole world. Offer up, O people of Baha, your substance, nay, your very lives for his assistance.
So you see here in this paragraph, which is from Kitáb-i-Íqán, Crimson Ark, he relates it, we said it was his cause. And then he talks about the king who becomes a believer, how we should give importance to this king. One should, not that he has a position or a status as such, because he says here he's numbered with the companions of Crimson Ark. He's numbered the same as the Baha'is. But because of his faith, because, somebody who has all the powers of the world, to accept a religion is something else, like the king of Samoa, who was the first king who became the believer. So he's asking us to assist that kind of person, that king, and even if we have to offer our lives for helping him to spread the cause of Baha'u'llah. Any points? Any views? No?
Just the obvious one that the ark is parallel to Noah. I'm sure that jumped out at everyone. But that there is this metaphor, this mystical, image of all the causes of God, like the she-camel is an image of the religion, or the Crimson Ark, or Noah's Ark. It's nice that each religion also, I guess, has some metaphor to describe the cause. And if I'd sat for 5 minutes, maybe I can try and think of what the other ones are. But yeah, that straight away jumped out at me.
Yes, great. Of course. Okay, so then there is another quotation from Quran here. Who wants to read that? Adam, do you want to read it?
Can you hear me?
Yes.
Okay, 1 second. Yeah, sorry, I'm just in the middle of cooking and doing this at the same time. Let's see here.
this.
What does it start with?
And to Samud.
Okay. And to Thamud we sent their brother Saleh. He said, "O my people, worship Allah. You have no deity other than Him. There has come to clear evidence from your Lord. This is the she-camel of Allah sent to you as a sign. So leave her to eat within Allah's land and do not touch her with harm, lest there seize you a painful punishment."
Interesting, isn't it?
Yeah.
That Quran is talking about the people of Samud, that tribe amongst whom Saleh appeared. And because they were worshipping idols, God had told them at that day, in those days, by Saleh, to stop doing that and worship one and only one God. And then it talks about the she-camel of Allah to you, a sign. It was a sign which is, we read that Abdul Baha says that the she-camel was the faith that Saleh introduced to people. And he says, God, Saleh had told them not to leave her, to leave this she-camel in Allah's land and do not touch her with harm. But they did the opposite. And it warns them, Saleh warned them that if you do, you will be seized by a painful punishment. Okay. Now there is a little bit more description which Adib Taherzadeh in Baha'u'llah, in the Revelation of Baha'u'llah, Volume 4 gives. So this is quite interesting. We'll just read through it, and it explains that if you have anything that crosses your mind, please do share it with us.
I have a question.
Yeah.
The Crimson Book is referred to the Kitáb-i-Íqán, right? Or did I?
I'm not sure. I'm not sure.
I was confused.
If it is specific to that book, maybe.
Okay.
You read it somewhere, Darius?
I have to check again. I thought I read it before.
Okay.
But that's why I was just asking if you guys have any insights.
Tell us about it if you know. Crimson Book. Kitáb-i-Íqán is of the will and testament of Baha'u'llah. Crimson Book. Okay, I've made a note to look it up.
No, it says in the epistle of the son of both, Baha'u'llah alluded to his own will and testament, the Kitáb-i-Íqán, as the Crimson Book.
Oh, I see. Right. So, yeah. Epistle. Thank you for sharing with us.
It also appears in God Passes By.
Okay. Okay. Great. Thank you. Thank you for sharing.
Rostam John,
Joanna.
when in the first paragraph we reiterated that you have to be people of understanding to understand all of this. Is it because they talk in so much symbolism that if you're not people of understanding, you wouldn't understand what you're reading? I don't understand why they didn't use very simple language in Quran rather than symbolism and I don't know, the she camel. I wouldn't understand what is a she camel.
Yes.
Is it because God speaks in a different language?
I suppose one could say that, because this the true understanding is not these physical understanding that we have. It's deeper than that. It's the spiritual understanding.
Yeah.
I think that it's different, and the conditions or prerequisite that Baha'u'llah gives us in the first paragraph. He says we should close our eyes from the earthly things, cleanse our heart from this, that, and so on. He gives us the formula. And that's how we develop this true understanding.
And I think we have to study a lot. That's why independent investigation of truth.
Absolutely, yeah.
So when you hear she camel, you don't think it's just a camel.
No. That's why, the writings are so deep, and Baha'u'llah says it's like an ocean. The deeper you dive in, the more precious stones you get out of it. I am a very bad swimmer. I can't swim, so I can't dive into the ocean. I'm sure all you young, wonderful people can do that.
I think Oshan had a question.
Yes, Oshan and then Delena.
Sorry, no, it was just no. Delena can go, and if it's important, I'll say it again. But yeah.
Well, I'm just thinking of the passage where Baha'u'llah says that every word, every letter has 25 meanings, and it's like every time you read a passage from the writings, you find a different meaning, and then a year later you read it again and you find another meaning. And isn't there somewhere in the writings where it says that the metaphorical nature of all the holy books also creates a test for us because of this tendency to want to interpret it all literally?
Yeah. Sure.
I would just quickly add to that, Delena. I think it must be the Valley of Knowledge, I guess, in the Seven Valleys, which at some point we have to get rid of all that knowledge, because it acts as a veil holding us back from actually getting closer to our goal, the essence that we're all looking for. And also, I think with that language, with like the she camel, let's say, I was just thinking it's like the camel is the most important
to the Arabs
in the desert. Like without it, there's death. Even if there's no water, you can survive from the camel. That's just saying that word would evoke so many deep meanings and feelings and spiritual feelings just for someone in the desert. Now is a different day, and then we have tests of those words for veils. But it's so important in mystical language to use these metaphors and things, because they really do take us to that you can write things simply, but it doesn't have the same mystical effect on the soul. Having said all that, of course, it then can act as a barrier, so you have to work both ways. But I feel like some things like a boat or a camel in that case are very, very strong to those people. And maybe a boat will become more important to us if global warming continues.
Well, and then, Baha'u'llah tells us that everyone can understand the writings. So he's, on the one hand, the writings are so mystical, they're difficult to understand, but he says that everyone has the capacity to understand.
Yes. Yes.
May I add something? Just a little bit of context.
Yes.
We have to understand that Arabia in that time was, I think, poets were had a very high station. in the society. They were the ones that kept the culture alive, the stories, the traditions, everything kind of sat on the duty or responsibility of poets. And poetry had a huge regard, even to this day. So that language is also somehow reflective of the culture. I mean, I think that they would say in those cultures that were, they could memorize huge swaths of verse in one go. And that's what they're even saying with cultures that have no literacy. The memory the power of memory is very strong. And the Quran itself, they said the Quran itself was the miracle, because the poets of the day were dumbfounded at the beauty of the verses. So we're getting an English translation, but the Arabic, and it's very high level, deep Arabic.
Yes.
So I don't think we really fully understand the language, of course, anymore. And it takes scholarly research to really understand the depth of the Quran and the language and the time that these verses were being revealed. But the Quran itself was the miracle, and the poets saw that because it was so profound, so beautiful, so awe-inspiring.
Absolutely. Yes. Very interesting. Thank you. Yes. There is quite a lot more to be read and discussed about these phrases in this paragraph. Maybe tonight we are a bit late. Are you okay to stay on, or shall we do the rest next time? Maybe we should read this paragraph. This is very simple from Adib Taherzadeh from the Revelation of Baha'u'llah. If somebody reads this, it explains few points here.
I can read, Dr. Beheshti.
Okay, who is that? Is that May?
I'm Shivani.
Okay.
Really? Okay. The following description is from Revelation of Baha'u'llah, Volume 4. Then God sent Saleh to them as a prophet. He was one of the people of Tahmud. Like Hud, he exhorted people to believe in God and stop worshipping idols. He argued with them for a long time, but they said that they could not find him the signs of prophethood. Thereupon God brought forth a she-camel as a sign. Tradition has it that the she-camel came out of a rock. Saleh asked the people to take care of the she-camel and to drink of her milk, but they did not. And when she came to drink of their water, which was scarce in that land and therefore vital to their existence, they raised great objections, and eventually they hamstrung the she-camel and killed her. Saleh repeatedly warned the people that if they did not respond to his message, they would be struck by a calamity and would be seized by God with a grievous punishment. When the sign from God, the she-camel, had no effect on the people and the animal was killed, an earthquake wiped them out, all except Saleh and his followers, who were saved. The Quran describes this episode in this way. Then they hamstrung the she-camel and insolently defied the order of their Lord, saying, O Saleh, I bring about thy threats, if thou art an apostle. So the earthquake took them unawares, and they lay prostrate in their homes in the morning. The stories of Hud and Saleh are somewhat similar to the story of Noah, the flood and the ark. They are all symbolic. In the Baha'i writings, we find explained the significance of such terms as Noah's Ark, the flood, the she-camel, and other incidents. For example, Abdu'l-Baha in a tablet explains that the she-camel was symbolic of the Holy Spirit of Saleh, and the milk was symbolic of the spiritual food which his spirit offered to the people. The significance of the she-camel being hamstrung is the suffering inflicted by the wicked people on that holy soul Saleh. The spring of water which the people denied to the she-camel signifies life on this earth. The people were so attached to earthly things that they could not recognize the gifts of God to them, and so they rose up in opposition to Saleh. And when he departed from their midst, they became deprived of his spiritual influence. His absence was the calamity which caused them to be deprived of the bounties of God, and consequently they perished spiritually.
Okay. So this is quite straightforward that Mr. Taherzadeh has explained a brief story of Saleh and what the Baha'i beliefs are on these terminologies like Noah's Ark and the flood during the time of Noah, the she-camel, and so on. So that's quite clear, no, for us? Does anyone want to add anything, any views?
So sorry, I'm speaking so much. Something that came to mind, I know that the early Baha'is were asked to explain the Quran to Muslims, because one thing that we take for granted is that we think that somehow religious people might understand these things. But as I understand, many millions of people read the Quran without even knowing what it means.
Yes.
They read it with literally, they don't understand the Arabic, but they read it anyways.
Yes.
So as Baha'is, I think it's very important and crucial to understand that we have a perspective on the Quran that not even the Muslims themselves have, and we can elucidate many of the mysteries within it. And I think that's how we should be teaching, essentially. That's how it will be attractive, because so many don't understand the Quran itself.
You see, that's a very, very good point. First of all, the Guardian writes somewhere that all Baha'is should deepen themselves and study Quran properly. And then you see this Iran, for example, you're absolutely right in saying that the Baha'is understand the meaning. For example, if this verse of Quran, you had to read it directly from Quran without knowing the background here of Saleh, what would you understand? Then they hamstrung the she-camel. They insolently defied the order of their Lord, saying, oh, so and so. It doesn't make any sense. It's the same with the Bible, and we are so fortunate that we have got the writings that explains all these very clearly to us. Not only that, but also we know that what the writing tell us is authentic. It's the right thing. It's not that something that the human beings are explaining. Very good point.
I can just add just a tiny bit because I think it's useful. The other thing is that Sunni Islam, you could just say the word Orthodox Islam. It's essentially Orthodox Islam. And they're not really meant to study the Quran individually. They're meant to read it and copy the Sunnah of Muhammad, which is basically the behavior and what he did.
Yes.
So the culture is not one where normal people are really meant to study that hard. I think they study maybe on Ramadan. That's about it, more or less. And then you have the mullahs and the the kind of learned divines and such, that all of that knowledge is in their hands. So it's a culture of very much of sheep following the shepherd kind of thing, and that's where, as Baha'is, we can. I mean, I notice I live in a village with Afghanis, and they're very shocked at what I know about Islam. They are extremely shocked about it.
Yes.
So with a little bit of knowledge, you can actually impress Muslims beyond quite easily, actually.
Yes. Absolutely, yes, that's true. Okay, now this little paragraph here is what we already talked about. The old cemetery in Akka surrounds Saleh's traditionally accepted resting place. It was in the shadow of his mother's shrine that both Mirza Mehdi, the son of Baha'u'llah, and Nawab, Asiya Khanum, Mirza Mehdi's mother and Baha'u'llah's wife, were originally interred. The remains have since been transferred to the Monument Gardens on Mount Carmel under the direction of the Guardian. So we talked about this, but I don't think we have more time to go.
You don't. You really don't. Really don't. Truly.
Because there are other quotations and phrases and a little bit about Samud that we can perhaps discuss next time before we move on to to paragraph 11. I'll send you some of these notes and then we can discuss it in the next session. Okay? Was Adam going to share the story with us tonight or today, or we do it next time, Adam?
Oh, I don't know. I think Ocean volunteered me without my knowing. So maybe it's better to I can maybe post it in the WhatsApp, because if we're running over time, people are probably a little antsy.
Right. What do people think? Is that good?
We'd like to hear it tonight if everybody else thinks it's time.
I'm willing. I'm willing.
Okay.
See how the majority feels.
Louis, can you ask the participants if they're all right to say how many minutes will it take, Adam?
Oh gosh, Osh, what do you think? 5-minute story or less?
Okay, fine. I think it should be all right. I volunteer all to agree.
I'm okay with it. We can wait 5 minutes.
Okay, go on then.
Okay, let me just pull it up here. Why manifestations appear in human form? So let's see, the writing is little. Kitáb-i Muhammad Kuli Khan Inak-i was an influential and rich local man who believed in Baha'u'llah and lived in Kusef, which is a part of Birjand. As a result of his acceptance of the faith, most of his relatives also became Baha'is. This Kitáb-i Nakai went on pilgrimage to Akka to attain the presence of His Holiness Baha'u'llah. On his first and second visit to Baha'u'llah, he was accompanied by other pilgrims. But when he returned to the pilgrim house, he thought to himself that he had borne the hardships and difficulties of a long journey that had lasted 6 months, hoping to witness some extraordinary divine events. But he saw in Baha'u'llah a man like others, speaking and giving instructions similar to other men. There is perhaps nothing extraordinary or miraculous here, he thought. He was immersed in these thoughts when on the third day of their visit, one of the servants came and informed him that Baha'u'llah wanted to see him alone and unaccompanied. He immediately went to the presence of the Blessed Beauty, and as he lifted the curtain and entered his room, he bowed and instantly saw the Blessed Beauty in an incredibly bright and dazzling light. So intense was his experience of this light that he fell to the floor and lost consciousness. All that he recalled is Baha'u'llah saying, Fi amanillah, which
Fi
means
amanullah.
Fi amanallah,
Yes.
which means go in God's safekeeping.
Yeah.
The servants were able to drag him out to the corridor and subsequently brought him to the pilgrim house. He could not eat or sleep for 2 days after the event, and he was conscious of Baha'u'llah's overwhelming presence everywhere. He kept on telling the other pilgrims that he is here with us. His fellow pilgrims got tired of this and asked Abdul Baha for help. After a couple of days, the servant came back again and took him to Baha'u'llah's presence. When he attained his presence, he poured forth loving kindness and gracious utterances and bade him to be seated. Then Baha'u'llah said, Janab-i Muhammad Kulli Khan, the manifestations of the divine essence are forced to appear in human attire and clothes. If their true being, that which is behind the veil of concealment, were to be revealed, then all humanity, like your good self, will lose consciousness and swoon away to the realm of the unconscious.
Wow.
Then Baha'u'llah went on, do you know how parrots are taught to speak? I bowed down and said, I do not. Baha'u'llah explained, the parrot owners have a parrot within a cage. Then they bring a big mirror in front of the cage, and a man hides himself behind the mirror and starts repeating words and phrases. The parrot sees that there is another parrot identical to itself talking in the cage, reflected in the mirror. And imagining that it is another parrot that is doing the talking is imagining that it is another parrot that is doing the talking is to start mimicking and learn to speak. Now, if the person who is actually behind the mirror were to reveal himself from the start, then the parrot will never learn to speak. It is thus that the manifestations of divine being should come into the world in human form and attire, so that they will not frighten mankind with their awesome being. This man was utterly transformed, and on his return from attaining Baha'u'llah's presence to the end of his days, he was engaged in teaching others. He had attained such spiritual insight that he predicted the night of his own departure from this earthly realm.
Beautiful. This is from Revelation, one of the revelations of Baha'u'llah. I think Mr. Taherzadeh has quoted this story. Very beautiful. Very nice. Thank you, Adam, for sharing this. And thank you, Oshan, for volunteering him.
So welcome. Thank you, Oshan. Thank you for the service opportunity here.
Yes.
If anybody else wants me to volunteer them for anything, just ask.
You should volunteer Kayvan Shahriari, because I can see his name, but we haven't heard him speak anything.
Kayvan, I'm volunteering you.
That's only because I have nothing to say. I'm utterly speechless by all that I've been hearing and inspiration.
Oh God, yes, you're so wonderful, Kayvan John. Okay, so wonderful. We are already 25 minutes on. I think our start is a little bit slow.
Yes.
We should do something about it to perhaps make it a little faster when we start. Maybe we should have beforehand a couple of friends for prayer, to start the prayer. And also maybe 2 or 3 people should volunteer to tell us the summary of the paragraphs we read and discuss in the previous session. So we leave that to Louis. We volunteer him to and get people to do that. I can see here on the screen Shivani and Meena. Maybe Meena can do an ending prayer for us. You're on mute. If you unmute yourself, great.
Duan.
Unmute.
O Gott, mein Gott, ich bitte dich bei dem Weltmeer deiner Heilung, bei deiner Gnade Sonnenglanz, bei deinem Namen, durch den du deine Diener beherrschest, bei der durchdringenden Kraft deines heiligsten Wortes, bei der Macht deiner erhabensten Feder und bei deinem Erbarmen, das der Schöpfung aller im Himmel und auf Erden voranging. Reinige mich mit den Wassern deiner Großmut, von allen Leiden und Gebrechen, von aller Schwäche und Kraftlosigkeit. Du siehst, o mein Herr, deinen Bittsteller am Tore deiner Großmut harren. Du siehst ihn, der seine Hoffnung auf dich setzt, an das Seil deiner Großmut geklammert. Versage ihm nicht, ich flehe dich an, dass er vom Meere deiner Gnade und der Sonne deiner Güte erbittet. Mächtig bist du zu tun, was dir gefällt. Es gibt keinen Gott außer dir, dem immer Vergebenden, dem Großmütigen.
Thank you very much. Thank you all for sharing your views, participating, being patient, all that. I don't know, Louis, do you think, what's the best way? Perhaps maybe we should